August 1965. Pakistan military's plan of covertly capturing Kashmir was at its peak. They pushed their forces into the valley through multiple infiltration points disguised as non-state actors, with the objective of creating chaos within the valley that could be further exploited for political gains. Haji Pir Pass was one of the most vital infiltration points for the Pakistan military and hence was a crucial supply line for their operations. Seeing the scope and size of the infiltration, the Indian government under Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri gave the Indian military a resolute directive to evict all intruders from the valley. The directive also sanctioned potential operations beyond the ceasefire line. This was the approval the Indian Army had been waiting for to capture the vital heights of Haji Pir Pass. Haji Pir held a significant importance for the Indian side in Kashmir. Apart from acting as a lifeline for the infiltrators operating in the Poonch area, it was also the link connecting the towns of Uri in the north and Poonch in the south. The Indian side lost this pass in the 1947 war between India and Pakistan, and hence it held significant emotional importance for the Indian Army. Haji Pir Pass had some dominating hill features surrounding it that formed multiple rings of defense around this strategic location. The Pakistan Army had significant defense strength on all these features. The Indian side had to first capture and secure these features before they could launch the actual final assault on Haji Pir. These features were Bidori in the northeast, Sank and Sar in the north, Ledwali Gali in the northwest, and Ring Contour in the southwest. These features were in a sequence one after the other, so for the Indian Army to even get to their final aim of capturing Haji Pir, they had to first capture these objectives one after the other. This made the Indian Army's goal complex by many folds. They could plan out a covert mission to launch a surprise attack, but that would be effective only on the first feature. Because as soon as the attack goes in, the remaining features in the interior would be made aware of the ongoing attack, and they would be more alert for any upcoming attacks from the Indian side. The rest of the features would have to be captured by outmaneuvering the enemy tactically or just by sheer brute strength. To make things worse, in all these battles, the enemy being on top of the hill would be at a dominating position, and the Indian side would have to climb up the feature under a barrage of fire before they could capture it. Air Force was not to play a role in these operations, with the intention of not escalating the conflict too much. It is important to note that by this time, the conflict between the two sides still had not escalated to a full-blown war. The Indian side intended to keep it that way. All these challenges would make this battle as one of the hardest ever fought by the Indian Army. The 68th Brigade was given the overall responsibility of achieving the objective under the command of Brigadier Zorawar Chand Bakshi. 3 regiments were to carry out 2 operations: 1 Para, 4 Rajput, and 19 Punjab. August 21st, 1965. Brigadier Bakshi held a briefing with the commanding officers of his brigade's regiments. Gentlemen, since 1947, we have been cribbing that the government does not allow us to go on the offensive. But this time, we have been given a clear mandate to capture Haji Pir at any cost. D-Day for capturing Haji Pir was August 24th, 1965, codenamed Operation Bakshi. They planned a 2-pronged attack from the north towards Haji Pir on the night of August 24th. 1 Para was to attack on the night of 24th and capture Sank and Sar by the next morning. After capturing the first objective, they were to quickly attack the next objective, Ledwali Gali. 19 Punjab was to attack Bidori the same night and capture the peak by the next morning. After the capturing of Bidori, 4 Rajput was to push forward towards Haji Pir from Bidori. Bad weather and heavy rains delayed the operation by 1 day, So the attack went in on the night of August 25th, 1965. One para initiated the attack on its first objective, the feature of Sun. They moved ahead covertly, but an already alert enemy was able to detect the movements of the Indian troops. One para was exposed in the open and started taking heavy fire from the enemy. The fire from the enemy was ferocious. One para had no option but to move back. The only thing that could have gone in favor of the Indian army, the element of surprise, was lost. The enemy was now on high alert on all the peaks. Now, the whole battle relied on the tactical acumen, the brute force, and the resilience of the Indian side. On the other front, 19th Punjab initiated their movements, but they also could not move fast enough due to slippery terrain after the rains from the previous night. 19th Punjab initiated contact with the enemy, but they were also stalled due to heavy fire coming from the enemy positions at the Bidori peak. By the morning of August 26th, 12 hours had passed, both the attack lines were stalled. Brigadier Bakshi was contemplating his next move when suddenly he received a message from the headquarters that Bidori had been captured. Brigadier Bakshi was surprised to hear the news, since he had not heard any news from his troops on the front. Thinking there must be some broken communication channel with his troops, Brigadier Bakshi took this information and ordered 4 Rajput to move ahead, secure Bidori, and let 19th Punjab move ahead for the final objective of capturing Haji Pir, where in fact Bidori had not been captured yet. The headquarters had received false intelligence from its sources, and it relayed the same intelligence to Brigadier Bakshi. 19th Punjab was in fact still stalled at the base of Bidori. The night of August 26th, 4 Rajput, as ordered, advanced towards Bidori from the other side, under the impression that the peak had already been captured and they were on a holding mission. They approached the base, and to their complete shock, they came under severe attack from the enemy. 4 Rajput took heavy casualties from the attack before they could settle in and start responding from their side. 4 Rajput then relayed their report to Brigadier Bakshi and requested artillery fire at positions at Bidori. But Brigadier Bakshi, still working under the impression that Bidori was under Indian control, did not allow artillery fire at Bidori. As a result of this miscommunication and faulty intelligence, 4 Rajput took very heavy casualties at the base of Bidori. Their attack was also stalled. It had been a little more than 24 hours since the initiation of Operation Bakshi, and the Indian side was yet to achieve its first success. So far, the enemy seemed to have the upper hand in the battle. One para, after their initial setback, consolidated their force and launched another attack on the dominating positions at Sangh. The enemy responded with heavy fires using medium machine guns, light machine guns, and other small arms. But this time, one para had a better assessment of the enemy's defensive positions and vulnerabilities it could exploit. Heavy fighting continued for 6 straight hours. And at 4:30 in the morning, one para did a frontal assault at the enemy's positions. This assault forced the enemy to retreat from their positions. They vacated their posts and retreated to the next line of defense, the peak of Sar. One para continued on its momentum and didn't give enough time for the enemy to settle in at Sar either. Soon, they attacked Sar and captured this feature as well. The last major line of defense of the enemy was Ledwali Gali. One para rapidly reached here as well, initiated an assault at this feature. The enemy's defense at this position was the strongest, and they put up a fierce resistance at this spot. Eventually, they were forced to retreat from this feature as well. By the morning of August 27th, it had been almost 36 hours of continuous fighting between the two sides. 4 Rajput and 19th Punjab were still stalled on the Bidori front. One para gained some major tactical victories by capturing Sangh, Sar and Ledwali Gali. Now what was left was the main objective, the feature of Haji Pir Pass, which was still under enemy control. The enemy had also assessed the situation and they were anticipating a full-blown attack at their positions at Haji Pir. So Pakistan Army provided reinforcements to strengthen the defenses at Haji Pir. They were ready to defend against any attack at their positions. It was now Brigadier Bakshi's move. Brigadier Bakshi had two options. He could either stick to the original plan of attacking Haji Pir simultaneously from two sides, but for this, he had to halt one para's movements at Ledwali Gully till 19 Punjab and 4 Rajput was successful in capturing Bidodi and were ready to assault Haji Pir from the eastern side. Or he could order one para to continue its momentum and attack Haji Pir alone. The first option was the logical one, but ran the risk of giving more time to the enemy to further reinforce their defenses. The second option was risky, but had the advantage of taking out the enemy when it was off balance. It was achievable only if executed with precision and speed. Brigadier Bakshi was contemplating his next move when he received orders from the HQ to stop any further movement of one para towards Haji Pir till Bidodi was captured. The assaulting columns were to move towards Haji Pir only after that. The headquarters ordered him to go with option 1. Brigadier Bakshi didn't agree with this approach. He assessed that this approach would give more time to the enemy to set up their defenses. He was confident that his troops in one para were capable of achieving the required precision and speed to capture Haji Pir on their own. So Brigadier Bakshi unilaterally decided to go ahead with option 2. And he did this against the express orders of his superiors at the HQ. This was a very risky move on his part, since he could be personally held responsible in case things didn't go as planned. He was aware of these risks and yet moved ahead with the decision. He planned a covert commando-style attack at Haji Pir with Major Ranjit Singh Dayal as the lead of the mission, along with small column from Alpha and Delta companies of one para. His specific message to Major Dayal was, "अगर ते जीत लिया हाजी पीर तो तू हीरो बन जाएगा, नहीं तो मैनू वो कैद कर लेंगे. If you win Haji Pir, you will be a hero. If you fail, they will arrest me for this decision." Same day, August 27th, 3:30 p.m., almost 42 hours into the battle for Haji Pir, Major R.S. Dayal's column commenced their march from Ledwali Gully towards Haji Pir Pass. They continuously walked till 4:30 the next morning, took some rest, and began the march again at 7 a.m. By 9 a.m., Major Dayal's column was 700 meters from the enemy's positions. This is when the enemy spotted the column and opened fire at their positions. However, with their covert approach, Major Dayal and his column was able to get close enough to the enemy defenses to assess their formations and positions. The main firepower was coming from the medium machine guns at the pass. The defense formations were centered around a few MMG positions that were bringing down ferocious fire at the Indian column. If there was any way Haji Pir was to be captured, these MMGs had to be silenced. Major Dayal assessed the situation and concluded that the best way of silencing the MMG position was to attack it from its flank, especially from a direction the enemy would not anticipate an assault. So Major Dayal devised a plan to continue the main column, engaging the enemy from the front, while two platoons move in on the enemy's side and attack the enemy positions from its flank. It was crucial that the enemy believed that the Indian side was only trying to attack Haji Pir frontally, while the smaller section outflanked the enemy. The plan was set in motion. The main column engaged the enemy from the front with all its power, and the two platoons covertly moved to the enemy's side, climbed up steep spurs in that direction, and when they were in position, opened fire at the enemy from its flank. The enemy was shell-shocked by the multi-directional attack and suffered very heavy losses. The attack took out the main firepower of the enemy, and seeing this opportunity that could be exploited, the Indian column on the frontal assault moved ahead with heavy fire on the enemy positions. The enemy saw the Indian troops rapidly closing in from two sides, so they vacated their posts and retreated from Haji Pir. So on August 28, 1965, at 10 a.m., Haji Pir Pass was secured by the brave men of 1 Para of the Indian Army, under the leadership of Major Ranjit Singh Dayal. Haji Pir was in Indian hands. And by August 29, 1965, the initially stalled 19 Punjab and 4 Rajput also carried out daring attacks at Bidodi and eventually captured the peak. With this, all the objectives of Operation Bakshi were completed by the Indian Army. The capture of Haji Pir was a major turning point of the 1965 war in India's favor. It blocked the main infiltration route of the enemy, and with no logistical support or personnel support from the enemy's side, the infiltrators already present in the valley started surrendering to the Indian Army, leading to the eventual failure of Pakistan's ambitious plan, Operation Gibraltar. With the failure of Operation Gibraltar, the Pakistan military launched the next phase of their plan of capturing Kashmir, codenamed Operation Grand Slam.